Hey guys, it's Will. Hopefully you're having a great day today. In this video, we're going to go over QBTS Quantum and cover the AI boom impact on the company, as well as answer some questions from my good friend and consulting client, Andrew Crookston. He asked some really good questions right before I attended the D-Wave conference, and we were able to meet the CEO of D-Wave. And I'm going to jump into our watch list, Quantum AI. Some of the questions that relate to this stock in the quantum space are really good that I had Andrew, he texted them over to me. He said, hey, I'm going to have some questions about this next meeting you're having and potentially getting a chance to meet the CEO or what have you. He says, I got some general questions. Here they are. The first question was, on a scale of 1 to 100, how likely is your company to use D-Wave in the future? Now, personally, my company doesn't have any interest as of now in using D-Wave until our computing power might have extremely high costs, which we saw a little bit of high costs, but we started to optimize for it. And you might say, Will, what's the company that Andrew's referring to? It's our company that analyzes all of the assets on the stock market and in crypto and cross references in real time all of the data through different AI models. So it goes from ChatGPT, cross references with Grok AI or Google's Gemini, and then comes to a conclusion with those cross references of where an asset might be in an allotted time frame for the future. So predictive analysis for stocks and crypto. And there's a lot of different variables that you look at. And so QBTS has been touted as one of the quantum companies that can help you do that. But personally, as of now, I'm able to solve all of the problems that I need in our app. We can do it with GPUs right now. Now, when it comes, so that's the answer. That's to answer the D-Wave question on if we'd use it right now. Most of the companies that are using D-Wave, if you take a look at their quantum, and we'll get into the second question, but most of them are in experimental. Like you could look at NASA, or you could look at, for example, Boeing recently partnered with D-Wave, and part of the partnership there was to simply see if there was opportunities to use D-Wave quantum computers to help. And one thing that they recently kind of changed says more than the world's. So it says D-Wave's quantum annealing computer performed magnetic material simulation in minutes that would take nearly 1 million years and more than the world's annual electricity consumption to solve using a classical supercomputer built with GPU clusters. So they're essentially saying we are more efficient than that of GPUs. And it's quite the statement. And they had a lot of hard evidence that they brought to their conference, but much of it used language that was, they showed the data, it looked very good, but some of the language was a little bit more on the projection side. And you got to be careful about the statements that they make. They have to be projective or they have to be educational. One way to look at that might be searching into quantum realized and looking at their framework, and the language that they use is important. Like, for example, the company provides quantum technology that is remarkably better or faster at solving computationally complex problems than a classical computer alone. So they are saying it's remarkably better or faster, and it could be that they're not saying it's faster, but they add the better with the or faster, because if they were ever in court around, let's say, a company, for example, there's some lawsuits happening right now against D-Wave, which is not a problem. That happens every day. You see, lawsuits from, against Tesla, against Apple, against Google. Tesla's against Palantir, Big Bear AI. And these are the type of law firms that oftentimes go after these companies. But you see D-Wave Quantum, they're under investigation from this for securities fraud. The way that they're saying isn't financial, but they're saying that the company has no credible plan, and they're a marketing gimmick. That's what they're saying there, and that they're not legit. Something like that. They're not quantum computing, and they rely on classical computing. That's what they say. So that was the number one. Look, I'm not saying this is right. I don't believe they could have a huge future. They have contracts with NASA. We saw Anduril there. They have the Boeing contracts. They're legit contracts. But that was the first thing that I said in day one. If you guys look back on the YouTube channel, when we were looking at QBTS, is before we get into this next question, I know we're getting a little off topic here, but it's really on topic because the next question ties perfectly. But essentially, I had this question: QBTS, D-Wave, the stock, are they actually having the real world application that they're saying? Because the language that they use, like remarkably better or faster at solving computational complex, it makes you say, oh, is it actually? And then its quantum systems are highly performant, highly reliable, and highly available. The type of language that they used was very good marketing language. And I personally know marketing language. We analyze companies all day long here on the channel. And they could say, certain things, and they can sound a certain way. And they might say, we are 10 times more efficient. 10 times more efficient than what? That's what I was asking myself all the time. So while there is claims that the marketing is a gimmick and things, you have to look at the real world contracts. So I'm not going to pay too much attention to it, but you do have to kind of look at that and say, well, interesting. What's their point there? And I'd like to see what maybe they come out with around which specific claims they're finding to be maybe fraudulent in that case. But anyway, that is what drew me to the conference. So the second question that Andrew asks is, what drew you to the D-Wave conference here? So we went to a conference. At the time, D-Wave had made a full recovery up into previous highs, and it was starting to sell off a little bit. And it was selling off during the conference here. But one thing that happened is we were looking at the marketing, and it was really good. And that's why I went to the conference. I said, is it legit? Literally, is this actually legit? And then at the conference, they had very, very good marketing. And you could see going beyond classical computing. And so they say these things, that make you ask questions. And so that's why I went. Did I get hard evidence that says I see them as massively more efficient than, for example, GPUs? Not necessarily. I didn't. Was there some instances where they were working with companies where they had many, many variables? Yeah, it made sense, but it wasn't something that I saw personally that I said, okay, we could only do that with D-Wave and not any other company. Was there some instances where they said that it was cheaper for the amount of computing power that they were using? Yes. And those are the things that actually brought my attention. So for example, let's say I'm running some local models, or I'm running some AI models for our predictive analysis tools, and it's starting to rack up a lot of spend. It's Amazon or AWS or Google or OpenAI, the ChatGPT is charging me a lot of money because of all of the computational power that I'm using to analyze thousands of assets with thousands or really millions of different variables. They're going to charge me more. And it's like D-Wave is saying, you could do all that for way cheaper. If I come to a part where I'm like, I really am getting charged like dumb amounts right now, then I go over to D-Wave and test it out and see the difference in cost running on their system. But it is quite kind of a friction to go into D-Wave from my current setup. But anyway, to answer your question, what drew me there, it was to validate their technology. Did I validate their technology? I validated their partnerships. I validated that they have contracts, that they're getting money consistently from different agencies, including NASA. Did I validate that their technology is as good as they say? I did not. Was there different things that maybe demonstrated, like here's a classical computer performance and then look at D-Wave and D-Wave is performing so much better and they show you a chart? They did. But the number one question that I would ask that did not get answered was, okay, that's compared to a classical computer, but what GPUs are that? How much computing power is that classical computer using? Is it using, a huge portion of a data center or an entire data center, or is it just like, a Dell computer that's like old or 10, 15 years old? You don't know. You really that wasn't something they specified. They didn't grab a NVIDIA GPU and say, here's how it performed against NVIDIA GPU. They did not do that. They said classical computing versus quantum. And that was something that I didn't see, which is why I'm not heavily invested in the company, because that was something I really wanted to see, but did not see. Does the cash, the influx and potential that they claim, is it attracting companies and they're working with new companies? Yes, they are. I think one of the biggest partnerships that they had that has been completely silent since their partnership happened was the partnership with MasterCard. They announced a partnership with MasterCard here. D-Wave and MasterCard take quantum leap into the future of financial services. Palo Alto, California. They announced that MasterCard and D-Wave to collaborate on the research and development of quantum hybrid applications, such as consumer loyalty rewards, cross-border settlement, and fraud management, all those things. And then you have the CEO, Alan, saying, we are heralding in the next wave of computing, just like the creation of the PC, the emergence of the internet, and the proliferation of smartphones and voice assistants. It is our belief that quantum will have a far-reaching and industry-disrupting impact, especially in the financial services sector. Hey, that sounds amazing. When was the last article we had on this? 2022? That's what I was looking for. What are those partnerships turning into? I could read the body language personally of people. I didn't see a potentially really optimistic body language from the Boeing exec that they had there talking about Boeing using D-Wave. He was like, there was a few moments where Alan would say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but here's what quantum can do for airlines. And he would talk about it. And then Boeing would most likely respond with something like, yeah, it sounds very good what Alan's saying. I'm looking forward to seeing that happen as we're just getting started. And we haven't seen that happen, but that's exciting to see the future, right? He's not saying, yeah, that's happening right now. And we are seeing drastic increases in how much money we're making. Boeing didn't justify those words that were being said. And I just read the body language. That seemed a little bit off. So that's what drew me there. Am I planting seeds of doubt? I'm not trying to at all. I'm really not. What I'm doing is I'm simply having a clear outlook on why I haven't put a lot of money into it. The goal is to make money, right? We have this overall uptrend. And look, we just pointed it out last week. Before we get to this third question here, really good question from Andrew. He said, before we get to that question, just a week ago, I was saying, look, D-Wave is in this trend. I could see it push up from $6.80 up to maybe $8 or higher. I mean, look at that. It pushed up from that $6.80 up to $7.95 in a quicker amount of time than what we projected. And it's holding that trend, and it is looking bullish. But again, the fundamentals look that way. And then the what compares is, let's get into it. Number 3, the question from Andrew. He says, in your opinion, how does D-Wave compare to its competitors? And have you looked into their competitors' solutions? All right, so from a competitor standpoint, they appear more real world. And then the question is, if they're more real world, how does that show up in their financials? Well, QBTS financials showing signs of market cap up to 2.3 billion. Take a look at the financials here. You go from quarter to quarter, they are seeing their net income slowly drop. Do you see the net income? It's getting a little bit worse and then worse, and then negative 86 million, right? Net profit margins down. So they're losing money there. But let's be honest, they beat revenue. The revenue's up a little bit, maybe from their consistent contracts with NASA or some of their other contracts. And the net income wasn't looking too hot. That part, the financials don't really differentiate them. So compared to other competitors, I mean, we could take a look at Rigetti. There's no difference. I mean, I could look at Rigetti, and Rigetti's more in the experimental phase, and you can see their net income is negative there as well, and they have around the exact same revenue. You can take a look at IonQ and see the same thing as well. They got pretty big negative net income, but their revenue is slowly increasing. IonQ actually looks a lot better than most of the other quantum companies. They're seeing more revenue and less of a negative net income. And so, but overall financials, no big difference. The difference for IonQ or D-Wave is explicitly in their marketing. You could look at, for example, IonQ, head over to their website. This is another quantum computing company. And the thing about them is they show, that they're working on these different things in quantum, from direct carbon sequestration, so pulling CO2 from the air, better battery materials, so computing many different options for batteries, and then using AI to run it through the quantum computer, improve drug discovery. They have that same type of language of we could help, not it already did this, which is fine. Air Force Research Laboratory, Lockheed Martin, NVIDIA, more established IonQ, and more revenue. What differentiates them? I mean, the only differentiator that I see is that they have the quantum annealing, D-Wave, which may be seen as more efficient. And then on top of that, their marketing is better, and they very much spend a lot of time saying that they're going commercial. And they say a lot of quantum computing companies, they're doing just experimental, and they just start doing research. But us, we're finding new applications or new efficiencies with AI for real world applications. That's how they portray their difference. I'd see that as true. It seems like they're working with them, but that's the marketing side. You could say IonQ, they advertise the technology, trapped ion, and what have you, but they're already commercial. I mean, these are commercial deals. Hyundai, NVIDIA, Airbus, Microsoft Azure, Amazon Bracket, Google Cloud, Lockheed Martin. These are commercial deals. So the thing that differentiates them, I would say that they're more aggressive on their marketing and very consistent in seeming to find new clients. But what I haven't seen is the long-term contract value being held, except for their NASA contracts, compared to that of IonQ. The reality is, if D-Wave is able to actually continue to back up some of the claims that they're making, and you start to see big partnerships, they're one big partnership away, they could see massive growth. If their, for example, Boeing partnership goes well, I didn't see that they publicly announced the Boeing partnership, but they had them at the conference. And so, like, let's say that goes really well, and they sign a big contract with Boeing. That's the difference, and that could be a massive thing. But it's like, we didn't see a big contract happen with MasterCard, and they had their chance there. We haven't seen the big contract with Boeing, and they've had their chance there. They are working with other countries. They're working in a lot of different places, and they seem to be well established. But they're really just one big partnership away. I think IonQ actually has a little bit of an advantage, as they already have some partnerships that seem to be pretty good. Same thing with Rigetti, but Rigetti's more still research and less commercial than any of them, but still making some of the most innovative leaps in their quantum tech. At least that's the way I see it. So that's my answers to your 3 questions. How do they differentiate? Yeah, I'd say their marketing, and other than that, the quantum annealing supposedly, is different than other types of quantum. And so that's something you got to consider as well. They got their cloud service, and it's solely their own cloud service. That's an advantage because other companies don't have it solely on their site, but they use other gateways like Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure to get the cloud usage through Amazon, AWS, or what have you, through those sites indirectly. So that would be one of their advantages, is they have their own cloud service. So that's the breakdown for QBTS. It's making that move. It looks like it's already made about of that 22% move that we were mapping out there. It looks like it already made 15% of it in the past few days. So we'll see if it holds. It's at a resistance now. I would expect maybe if it makes that run, that's quite bullish. I would expect maybe a sell back down here. And that's just something we'll have to watch. I'll be there live. If you guys ever want to join us in our market live session in StockMate, would love to have you there. We go live and trade quantum, AI, and tech and space stocks. If you ever want to join StockMate, would love to have you there. Fundamental analysis, technical analysis, the program books that we have there, as well as the community, private messaging groups. And you can send me a message anytime you like. There's a special offer down there in StockMate. So I would encourage you guys to simply go take a look at it. It's that second link in the description to get started. So we would love to have you there. And that sale is ending soon. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you all. If I earned your thumbs up, hit that like button. Do consider subscribing. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.